us. But with that, I will welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. I'm Eric Friedman. I am Assistant Executive Director for Public Affairs at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. So with the primary election in June, this is now a semi-annual hearing that we hold for voters to share information about their experiences at the polls in the election we've just conducted. So before I look to CFB Chair Rick Schaefer to formally start the meeting, I want to mention that we're introducing a few measures for tonight's hearing that we hope will make the proceedings more accessible for New Yorkers, for voters with disabilities. So we are providing closed captioning for tonight's meeting, which you can see if, on Zoom here. We're also asking speakers to introduce themselves with a brief visual description of themselves and their surroundings. So in that light, I'll share. I'm a white Jewish male. I have brown eyes and medium length brown hair that is going gray at what seems to be an increasing rate these days. I'm wearing a blue button-down shirt and no tie. I'm in a room with some pale white walls and some furniture behind me. So with that, at this point, I will look to Chair Schaefer to formally open the meeting.
Thank you. And I guess I will begin with a similar physical description of myself. I'm an old white guy with gray hair, and I'm wearing a beige suit and a collared shirt without a tie. It's very hot today. And I am the chair of the New York City Campaign Finance Board, and I'm very happy to welcome everybody to today's meeting. Tonight is our biannual post-election meeting where we want to hear from you, the voters, about your experience voting in this year's primary election. While there is still much we don't know about this election, early returns indicate that voter turnout could be its highest in decades for a local election. Pre-election polling also indicated that most voters were familiar with ranked choice voting before heading to the polls, a testament to the work of NYC Votes and our many partners. Tonight, we want to hear about your voting experience this June. Your testimony will shape our formal recommendations to election administrators and legislators alike. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to hearing your testimony. I will now turn it over to Amy Loprest for her update on the campaign finance program.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, my name is Amy Loprest. I'm the Executive Director of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. I am a heavyset middle-aged woman who has alopecia, so I'm bald, but tonight I'm wearing a black headscarf and a black sweater. I have brown eyes, and behind me is a bookcase on which sits a cat and perhaps a second cat at various times throughout the evening. Before we hear from the members of the public, I want to give a brief update on the campaign finance program. On June 17th, the board issued more than $14 million to 270 candidates in the final pre-election payment of the 2021 primary election. The CFB has now issued $109,764,807 to candidates participating in the 2021 elections, an all-time high. Additionally, a maximum public funds payment has been issued to 130 candidates, another program high. The next disclosure reports are due at midnight, July 15th. The first general election payment could also come on July 15th. It'll be based on disclosures from June 11th. We are looking forward to everyone's testimony before the committee tonight. Before I turn the program back over to Eric Friedman, I just want to make a brief statement about the tabulation of results. Last night, the Board of Elections in the City of New York identified a mistake in the unofficial ranked choice voting round by round elimination report released yesterday. The BOE's hardworking staff deserves credit for moving quickly to fix the error, which had nothing to do with the ranked choice voting. We are confident the counting process will proceed and the BOE will provide official certified election results that can be verified and that all New Yorkers can have confidence in. The City of BOE had developed a plan to use the ranked choice voting tabulation software, starting with the 4 special elections held earlier this year. It is unfortunate that the State Board of Elections delayed approval of that software until May, leaving no opportunity for the City BOE to use the system under real world conditions before yesterday. We want voters to know that their ballots will be counted in every election. That is why we believe it is time for a comprehensive review of the BOE's processes that includes higher standards for data transparency, hiring practices, and quality assurance procedures, and full funding of election operations that deliver better service to New York City voters. And with that, I turn the program back to Eric Friedman.
Thank you, Amy. So before moving forward, I want to we have a couple members of the committee who are here. I know I've heard that 1 or 2 folks will be late, but I see Jamela on behalf of the Public Advocate's Office. If you'd like to say a few words, or I see Oakley and Joan here as well. If you guys would like to welcome folks and say a few words. Jamela, let's start with you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Really quickly before we get into this hearing, and I'm looking forward to actually hearing the testimonies of several New Yorkers about their experiences. From the Public Advocate's Office, we just want to say we're really excited about the voter turnout, as was already mentioned by the chair. This is probably some of the largest turnout that we've seen in probably 30 years. Typically, turnout is somewhere around 20% or lower, and we're around 25%. And I think that's a testament to all of the great work that has been done by all the community-based organizations, the Campaign Finance Board, Democracy NYC, and all of the partners that have been working so closely with our office and with each other to make sure that there's a multi-ethnic and multiracial and multilingual campaign to educate voters about the primary that just passed, and also to educate them about ranked choice voting. And similar to what Amy has said already, we're all aware of the technical error that was made yesterday with the reporting of the tabulation for the first round of RCV results. And everyone is looking forward to the new results coming out. And we just assure people that you can still have confidence in the system. This was a reporting issue that has been rectified and is moving forward. Of course, there will be some additional changes, most likely in the city, with how we address these matters. With that, I want to turn it back over to you, Eric, and looking forward to hearing from everyone this evening on their experience voting.
Jamila, before we move on, would you be willing to just give a brief for our vision impaired viewers, a brief description, physical description of yourself and your surroundings?
Yes, and I forgot to do that, and I'm so sorry. I am a Black woman with a pretty large afro with the right part. I am wearing a blue shirt with a background that is white, a wooden door, and paintings on my wall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. Other members of the committee who'd like to say a few words before we begin? So hearing none, before we start the public testimony, I want to say a few things about the work that went into this election, and we've heard a couple comments already. This is, as we've been hearing, really the biggest voter turnout in a local primary we've had in a generation. So nearly 1 million voters participated in June's primary, about 25% of all registered voters who are eligible. And reflects the incredibly high stakes and really critical moment that we're facing in our city, but also is the result, and I thank Jamila for talking about this, the amount of work that went into preparing New Yorkers to make their voices heard. Really an unprecedented level of communication, both inside of and outside of government, in preparation for the primary. From here at the CFB and through our NYC Votes initiative, we thoroughly and completely redesigned the voter guide that we mailed to every household with a registered voter to help voters understand and prompt them to do their rankings for ranked choice voting. We, in partnership with our friends at Democracy NYC and again, inside and outside of government, conducted a ranked choice voting education that got voters' attention. More than 525,000 voters visited our newly redesigned voting.nyc site to help them learn how to use the new system and do their research into the candidates. We, through a series of seminars, really in every borough, hosted in cooperation with a long list of elected officials, community organizations, reached over 10,000 people directly with ranked choice voting training presentations, providing them with information that to help them educate their friends, neighbors, acquaintances, families. Through our Get Out the Vote efforts in the weeks before the election, our volunteers reached over 630,000 voters, targeted specifically by their voting preferences and specifically aimed at reaching those voters who might not be targeted by campaigns, and really trying to pull new people into the process. And what we saw, again, the highest turnout in a generation. In addition to those turnout numbers, exit polling shows that voters really embraced ranked choice voting. 83% of voters polled in the wake of the election reported ranking 2 or more candidates in the mayoral primary. 95% of voters found the ballot simple to complete. 77% of voters say they want it in future elections, and those results are pretty consistent between ethnic demographic groups. Understanding and acceptance of ranked choice voting across the board was pretty high. There is a lot more work to do. The fact that we are celebrating 25% turnout in a local primary as something that's high means that we have a lot more work to do. But hopefully, I hope we use this time productively to really lift up some of the lessons we can take away from this election, and really reflect on some of that work we have ahead of us. So with that, let me talk a little bit about how this is going to go. Again, we have folks who have signed up to testify. If you have not previously signed up and let us know, you're of course welcome to speak, but we'll be calling on people in order that they've kind of showed up and kind of let us know that they plan to testify. So we're going to try to limit speakers to 2 minutes. As a reminder, we are asking speakers to take an accessibility moment before they begin and provide a kind of short physical description. We will start your clock after that description is completed. So please know that if you have questions that you'd like to raise up during your testimony, we have staff here in the webinar to answer questions or share facts as we go along. They'll be active in the chat, and we'll be happy, to kind of come on camera to comment if questions arise. And I'll just provide a last reminder as we get started. We're also streaming this meeting on Facebook Live, and we're going to be keeping an eye on comments that might be surfaced through, on Facebook from our Facebook audience. So with that, let us kind of kick right into public testimony. So at first, I'm going to invite Laura Wood, who is our city's Chief Democracy Officer, on behalf of the Democracy NYC initiative, to be our first testifier, for our first panelist. If she is here, let's get her up and going. Laura, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Wood. I'm the city's Chief Democracy Officer. I am a white woman, currently with brown hair. I'm wearing glasses with my hair pulled back. I am wearing a purple floral top, and behind me is a white wall with a picture of a barn door with red doors on it. Thank you again to the Campaign Finance Board and the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee for the opportunity to submit testimony. And I think we are all really excited to hear from voters this evening, so I will keep this oral testimony as brief as possible. Want to join in the chorus of voices that have already shared that the June primary really was nothing short of historic. And it really took the work of so many people, both inside and out of government, to make sure that voters were provided with information about ranked choice voting and the importance of the June primary in the neighborhoods where they live and in the languages that they speak. And we were so happy to work with the Campaign Finance Board, the Board of Elections, the Public Advocate's Office, the Civic Engagement Commission, the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, the Young Men's Initiative, and the Mayor's Public Engagement Unit, along with so many non-governmental organizations in this effort. And the results of these joint efforts are clear. We saw New York voter participation in a primary surge to the highest rate in at least 20 years, with what appears to be over 25% turnout, thanks in no small part to these collaborative efforts and the public education campaigns that provided accurate and timely information to voters. And this work was specifically bolstered in the last 6 weeks by an unprecedented investment of $15 million for voter education to inform New Yorkers about the new ranked choice voting system ahead of June's primary elections. This included a citywide advertising campaign in 25 languages, investments in language access and accessibility resources, direct outreach partnerships with community groups, faith-based organizations, minority and women-owned businesses, and other stakeholders. Since December 2020, Democracy NYC worked with over 155 partners, held over 50 workshops in 5 languages, sent over 2.4 million text messages, and made more than 9,000 calls to inform New Yorkers about ranked choice voting, the upcoming election, and their voting rights. We sent over 1 million robocalls, mobilized nearly 400 volunteers, and engaged over 5,000 people at in-person events, all to ensure that voters were ready to rank their vote and head to the polls to elect their next municipal leaders. And we also distributed more than 300,000 pieces of literature about the election and ranked choice voting in multiple languages. According to our media placement vendor, they have estimated that we reached over 90% of New Yorkers with our advertisements in more than 25 languages, up to 25 languages, excuse me. And in total, our ads delivered more than 120 million impressions. So all of this was good. And I think that New Yorkers, by and large, really got ranked choice voting, those who chose to come out and vote. And yet, despite these tremendous efforts by so many groups and individuals, there were still some problems that bear mentioning that arose both during the primary, on primary day itself, and of course, as a result of those preliminary tabulations yesterday. It has become clear with each election that passes that we really need to fundamentally reform the agency charged with election administration in New York City. And we at Democracy NYC look forward to continuing our work with Senator Krueger and Assemblymember Rosick and their legislative colleagues on a bill that would immediately reform the New York City Board of Elections. We were thrilled to hear earlier today that the legislature plans to hold hearings on this important issue soon. And we believe that this bill is a significant first step towards long-term holistic reform. The other problem, which mostly arose on primary day, is that there were reports of shortages of legally required interpreters, including at Queensbridge houses, where we saw gaps in both Spanish and Chinese interpretation throughout the day. The Board of Elections has a historic lack of transparency around language access and a failure to fulfill these basic legal mandates, which leads to voter disenfranchisement. And this is disenfranchising voters who historically face the biggest barriers to the polls. So given this, it is clear that the language access program needs to be overhauled to make it more transparent and to ensure proper coverage for subsequent elections. Furthermore, we did see some delays. They weren't super widespread, but there were delays opening several poll sites on primary day. And once again, it just bears repeating that the Board of Elections must appropriately recruit and train sufficient numbers of poll workers and have a reserve to ensure smooth election administration. So with that, I will turn it back to Eric, and I really am looking forward to hearing others' testimony during this important hearing. Thank you again to the CFB for your terrific partnership, and of course to the VAAC for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your partnership during this last year plus of really just incredible work, making sure that, again, helping New Yorkers make their voices heard. So thank you. So next on our list, we're going to look to Leah Martijeva. Hopefully I've gotten that pronunciation close to where it should be, but please let me know if I didn't. Are you here with us?
I do not see her.
All right, so if she's not here, let's keep an eye out for her if she joins, but I will move through the list. And please, if we end up skipping over you, please don't worry, we will come back to you. So next up, Kathleen Tejada. I believe I saw her here. Okay.
Yep, she's being promoted.
Yes.
Hi, I'm so sorry. My Zoom got disconnected and I had to rejoin.
No worries. Glad you were here. Thanks for being here. Please, start off. Give us a description if you could, and we'll look at you to take it away.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. I am an Afro-Latina. I have a medium dark complexion. I have black hair tied into a bun. I am wearing a white short sleeve shirt, and I am standing in front of a virtual background that has orange chairs and a wooden desk. Thank you so much, everybody, once again. Dominicanos USA, I'm the Civic Engagement Coordinator for Dominicanos USA. And we were very active in mobilizing the community during the June primary elections. We held the phone and text banking operation from June 9th all the way up until the day of the primary elections on June 22nd. During our campaign, we were able to reach over 30,000 voters. Our mission was to mobilize voters to go out and vote for the June primary elections. We also wanted to ensure that voters had all the necessary resources available, such as information on ranked choice voting, as well as voter resources, such as looking up a poll site or requesting an absentee ballot. Even though the majority of our voters were planning to vote on election day, they were thankful for the final push and for the resources provided. There were voters that had changed their addresses previously and did not have the information on the new poll sites. During this period, our team was also able to visit poll sites during early voting and on election day in order to observe the voter turnout in communities in Upper Manhattan and the Bronx. Our communications team was also active throughout the campaign on social media, as well as distributing emails and newsletters. We also held interviews and press conferences in Spanish media and on local television. During our visits to the poll sites during early voting, one thing that we noticed that there was a low turnout in the poll sites that we visited. While communicating with voters, one concern that stood out particularly was the distance of the early poll sites, especially in the Bronx. We have spoken to voters who had missed the deadline for requesting the absentee ballots, and they were not available to vote. They were not available to vote on election day. When assisting with the early voting poll site lookup, a lot of these sites were far. Some voters having sites that were assigned a few miles away from them. This especially affected voters in the senior population, as access to early voting sites were difficult for them. There were many voters that wanted to participate in early voting to avoid the crowds, but the distance was a challenge. Aside from our phone and text banking operations, DUSA held several days of action in conjunction with other organizations such as NALEO Educational Fund, Rank the Vote NYC, Faith in NY, and Democracy NYC, to name a few, by tabling for ranked choice voting awareness at commercial corridors throughout Upper Manhattan and the Bronx, where we distributed literature on ranked choice voting. We focused on areas that have low voter participation rates. We also did a final push to register voters before the May 28th deadline to ensure that they could vote in the June primary elections. During these days of actions, we were able to answer any questions voters had about ranked choice voting. Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Thank you so much for your work, and thank you for being here tonight to share your story with us. Next up, we have Rodrigo Cortez.
He's getting promoted.
Hello, I'm here.
Yep, we hear you. Do we see you?
Perfect.
Yep. All right, there you go. Please take it away. Start off with a visual description if you could.
Visual description. Okay. I have a gray shirt, some glasses, black hair. Is that enough? Sorry, it's my first time doing this.
It's our first time too. I think you're doing great.
Great. So anyways, just first time participating in one of these, so I just wanted to come here and pop in. I got one of the emails from, I think it was NYC Vote or something. And as I understand, it seems to be a way for people to give feedback to people that are involved with the process. So I figured, let me hop in and do this, right? So I guess my concerns from the things that I'm looking into is my ability or to be able to vote by mail, right? So the past year was the first time I did it, which was it's very great, very convenient, which I like it. However, I guess I'll give a little bit of background before I'm going with this. But when I registered to vote in New York, they asked me for like an address, home address, which is, I guess, required for me to vote. However, it seems that there's no option for me to prevent that information to be released to other parties. So I often get a lot of paper mail at home, like a lot of flyers. And I'm one of those people that prefers to like minimize waste and recycle and everything. So speaking to the board, the people who are in charge of that, I've tried to figure out a solution, and it seems like there really isn't, because if I remove my address, I'm no longer able to vote. So speaking with other voters, what they've recommended, what some people have done before, they said, do not put your apartment, just put your address. That way they'll get returned to sender. However, I believe if I do that, I won't be able to receive my mail-in ballots. So I haven't tested it. I don't want to test it, right? Because I want to get my paper mail, but I'm going to throw that out there so if anybody can pass it to the right people and look into that. I don't mind sharing an email to get things, but I would prefer to, save a lot of paper, right? So that's it. So thanks, guys, for being here and providing this forum.
Much appreciated. Thank you for being with us and sharing your story, your concern. Maybe we can crowdsource an answer for you. One thing that I will note is that you have the ability through the CFB and NYC Votes to sign up for email alerts. And if you'd like to take your name off of our mailing list for the voter guide, you're able to do it.
No, I meant like the individual politicians that get it somehow. I'm not sure exactly how they get it, but somehow they get it through public means. I have to email them, each of them separately, but I always need people in all the time. So, after doing it for a year, I said, you know what, it's just not too time consuming. But like every other corporation out there, they allow you to subscribe to third-party sharing, things like that. So that'd be something great if that can be implemented, right? Because I do want to vote. So yeah. For sure. No, and the voter list it's a good reminder that the voter list is public record, right? And campaigns do use it to try and ask for your vote. So email instead of address, if that's an option that can be implemented in the future, that'd be pretty amazing, right? Just to.
Very good. Thank you for spending time with us tonight. So we'll keep moving through our list. Our next Member of the public signed up to testify is Kay Cardona. Is Kay with us?
Kay is not with us. It does not look like.
Kay is not with us. Okay, so we will move through the list, and if Kay joins the meeting, we'll come back to her. Ilya Schwartzberg. Is Ilya Schwartzberg with us?
Does not seem so.
All right. Moving to the next name, Silas Rodriguez. Is Silas with us?
Yes, promoting Silas.
I don't know if I can be heard.
I can hear you, Silas.
So I'm a Hispanic woman, 65 years of age, and live in the Lower East Side. I have gray hair and short gray hair and wearing a black t-shirt. So I want to be brief, and basically my concern is when I went to vote on the 22nd, I appeared as not being registered at my regular polling place. So I was taken aback, never happened. I've been voting for 20 odd years in the same place, which is barred in the Lower East Side. And so I produced my driver's license and just to confirm my address and help the poll worker verify who I was and my date of birth. But I appeared as being registered in Brooklyn, which is very weird because I've never lived in Brooklyn. So that was concerning to me. I did work in the elections, presidential elections as a poll worker. And I had a few people who were also, that happened to them and they had to vote by affidavit, which I did so. But it leaves you kind of disheartened. You wonder if your vote is being counted and you feel kind of disillusioned. So why does this happen? Why does a registered voter for many years appear as being registered in another borough, not in her borough? And then lastly, also, I recently signed a petition for a local politician, and he got back to me and told me, oh, you came back as not enrolled or not registered as a voter. And apparently a few people in the Lower East Side were disqualified. Their signatures were disqualified because we appeared as not being enrolled. Okay, so that's all. But it does concern me. Why am I in Brooklyn when I live in Manhattan?
That is concerning. And so thank you for being here and sharing your story. If there's any way that we can help, please, please be in touch. We're happy to pass your information along to the Board of Elections and see if they can't provide an answer. And maybe, they are usually pretty responsive when it comes to researching individual voter records. So we can certainly help facilitate that if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you for being here and taking the time to share your story. So next on our list, Kathleen Collins. I believe I see Kathleen.
He is being promoted. Yep.
Kathleen, when you're ready, why don't you just go right ahead?
Sorry. Hi, my name is Kathleen Collins. I'm a white female with short brown hair and brown eyes, and I'm wearing a pink top. I don't know if you can even see it, but be that as it may. I am one of 4 co-coordinators for the Voter Engagement Working Group for Downstate New York ADAPT, a grassroots organization representing people with all different types of disabilities. And I want to say right off the start, I want to thank you that this is wonderful to see that we have here tonight ASL interpretation, closed captioning that you can even download so you don't have to take copious notes, and that we have audio descriptions here of the speakers. This is what I envision for me with respect to meetings in the future. And I hope that in the future that people won't even have to know what audio description is, because it will just be a matter of course, you know. So I really do appreciate this. I just hope our candidates are watching so they will do this in future debates, their own descriptions. First, I would like to thank Ariel Merkel from the Board of Elections of these in the city of New York, and Ali Swatek from the New York City Campaign Finance Board for holding many accessible presentations on ranked choice voting and how it will work on ballot marking devices with many different disability organizations. We really did appreciate it. They even went above and aboard the call of duty, in that I remember one meeting was on a Saturday where they spoke at, and I can never thank them enough. They are 2 wonderful ladies. We have some various recommendations and various issues that we raised that we found with respect to the most recent primary election, and some that were just general issues concerning elections. I won't belabor them. You have that. We'd just like to point out 1 or 2 things from that letter. One, in that letter, we set forth the fact that with respect to the ranked choice voting on the ballot marking devices, there were inconsistencies on how it showed up for various people. And it didn't matter whether you were in one borough or another. So we just like in the future, if there could be a consistent way that it could be displayed on the ballot marking device, who the candidates and how we're ranking them. One of the ways that we suggest is that you do it by, you show the office that's participating in ranked choice voting, and then you just set forth, ranked choice 1, you do it, then ranked choice 2, you do it for that one particular office. And then you go, after you finish the 5, you go to the next office. Because that's not how it always worked most recently. And you'll see that in our letter. Just one other issue that we'd like to raise is that sometimes the ballot marking devices are still not working. And one of our co-coordinators, Michael Ring, who may be speaking tonight, he pointed out that what we should be probably having is having such a thing as a test ballot or a mock ballot be used early before the polling sites are open, where that you could test out the ballot marking devices so that they could identify problems and fix them before they are used by the actual voters, so that the voters won't be considered like the guinea pigs of using these, of testing them. We know they may be tested before they come to the polling sites, but things may have happened that when they get to the polling sites, they're just not working. So we'd really appreciate that. As I said, we have identified other issues and recommendations in our letter, and we just hope that they will be considered so that in the future, all New Yorkers will be able to vote independently and privately. So thank you for this opportunity, and we hope to work with you more on this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for being here, for being here at the hearing tonight, for sharing your written testimony, and really for all of your input and feedback and partnership over this past year.
Well, it's not just me, it's my entire organization. They're a great group of people, so thank you.
Thanks very much. And moving through our list, the next member of the public signed up to testify is Alan Kata. Is Alan with us?
Does not appear so.
All right. So the next name on our list is Grisel Ortiz Thompson.
Oh, okay. I think I got it.
All right. I'll recognize while he's taking care of this Jordan Pantalone, our intergovernmental liaison who is manning the Zoom for us quite capably.
I am present. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Wonderful.
Please go ahead when you're ready.
My name is Gristel Ortiz Thompson. I am a Latina. I'm currently wearing a black sleeveless summer dress in my home with a white wall background and some flowing curtains. I'm coming in as both a voter and a poll worker, also poll watcher. So I have a unique perspective on the process from 3 different viewpoints. As a poll worker, my experience is that the Board of Elections, although there are always improvements as everything in life, can get better, but they have an arduous job and they do a fantastic work trying to do, perfect all the challenges that they encounter election after election, especially in this ranked choice voting. But also as a worker, I'd like to say to the Board of Election that they need to have a more clear and concise rule about allowing pets into the facility. It is unfair that those working as line managers are put to task to reject the pets, and the public get very aggressive and argumentative over bringing their pets into facilities. Many a times it's clear the animals are not service animals, as I have witnessed them jumping on tables. Other voters could be allergic to the type of dog that there is. So that's something I'd like to see, definite, clear, concise rule. Now, I'm also part of a Democratic club, and in terms of absentee ballot, last election, during the chaos with postal service and the delays and the absentee ballot, our Democratic club and elders took on the challenge, and we created an absentee ballot committee. And what we personally did was collect these applications for those who were trusting and had our confidence, and personally walk them down to the Board of Elections that's in Manhattan at 200 Varick Street. For those who allowed us, we were the designated party to receive their ballots and personally deliver them. And then it was up to the voter whether to send it back in the mail or entrust us to personally, once again, deliver them to BOE. So that's a challenge that maybe organizations might think about, copying and providing type of service to the constituents and the active registered voters in their area. And now, as a voter, I just like to express my frustration with the ranked choice voting. I am not a fan. I've encountered many voters who are not a fan in my unique position of being a line manager. And it's, okay. So from my understanding, the whole process was to save funds and try to eliminate any special elections. How often does New York have special elections where they have to have a runoff first off? And what are those funds in comparison to the amount of money that has been spent on this year's matching funds. The millions of dollars that I understand are being spent and allocated could be put to much better use in New York City in terms of education and other areas, transportation. I mean, you name it, it's a whole list that the funding can be put towards. So although they're in the news, we've just read about the error with the counting, and the politicians are now coming forth and making a lot of political noise about the BOE. It's more about the process of ranked choice voting during this election, such a big election. First of all, I like to dispel the idea that a wide variety of New Yorkers voted for this ranked choice. It was put on as a proposal in an off-year election where only 9%, I believe, of registered voters voted for this. So right off that notion that New Yorkers want this system, I don't agree with it. We need to further look into that and maybe revisit this whole process. And I have a lot more, but I'm not sure if my 2 minutes are up.
Yeah, if you could wrap up, we do just want to make sure we hear from everyone. I don't want to cut anyone off. We do want to make sure we hear from a lot of folks.
And I just want one last thing. I want to encourage anyone on here and who may have access to the recordings later on, that every voter should always check the status of their voter registration prior to the deadline for each election registration deadline. That would potentially help with the problems of not being on the registered list, having been eliminated, or having their political preference changed. Thank you for your time.
Grisel, thank you for taking the time to be here and sharing your stories, your experience as a poll worker, which is, it's always valuable to hear from folks who work at the polls. And thank you for sharing your views.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Ernie Searle.
So I do see an Ernie here. I'm just going to promote him. We'll make sure this is the right one.
Hopefully we have the right Ernie. So I just before we turn to Ernie, I see a hand raised. I'll ask folks if you have questions as you go along. You can put them in the Q&A, put them into the chat. I do want to make sure that we either take some time during the conversation to answer those messages in the chat, or if we don't get to any, we will reserve a little time at the end to make sure that we double back so that there are no questions left unanswered. So in the meantime, if we have Ernie here, I think I see you.
That's me. I'm Ernie Searle. I'm an old white dude, gray ponytail and a bushy beard, unrepentant hippie. I've been a poll worker for many, many years, all the way back to those old lever machines. And one thing to mention is that every time there's a change in operations or procedures or whatever, people complain about it. So they're going to complain about ranked choice, but it was passed by a 75% margin. I do want to address a couple of the points that have been raised. First, as a poll worker, both in early voting and at the election, interpreters. At our site where I was working, which is in Queens, We have a very large Russian population. We were told from the get-go, there were no Russian interpreters and no Russian interpreters would be provided. One of the poll workers was drafted and at least one of the poll watchers made a report that this is not proper. I would like that looked into. Also, when I was doing the election day, there were 0 interpreters and there were so few people that I spent most of the day alone at a table. We also had 0 Republicans at the polling place. So everything was done by Democrats. I made sure that everything at my table was 100% above board because I've been registered as both Republican and Democrat in my time. One other thing I want to raise is that I love the Fast Pass system. It is incredibly efficient, but I found that fewer than 10% of the people had it and used it. I think that there really needs to be a public education campaign to get more people to use it. A lot of people told me, oh, I thought it was just campaign literature and I threw it away with the rest of it. So if that could be addressed, that would be a good idea. Other than that, I really think that the ranked choice voting is a great system. I actually proposed it with my Boy Scout troop back in the 1980s, and it worked well there. And I like the way it was working here. I think it saves the city a lot of time and money. And I think that most of the campaigners are in favor of it. If you have any further questions for me, please feel free to ask.
Ernie, thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Again, you know, we love hearing from people who take the time to work the polls because it's just such an important role in keeping the machinery of elections running smoothly, as smoothly as it can. So thank you for your service and thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
I'll be back.
I hope so. Next, take care. Next on our list, Danielle Brecker. Is Danielle with us?
She is.
Hi, can you hear me? See me?
Let's see. I hear you.
Okay.
If you are ready,
I'm ready.
There you are. There you are. Please begin.
Hi, I'm a white woman with very bright red hair. I am wearing a printed sundress and I have the Zoom blurred background so you don't see my messy apartment. My name is Danielle Brecker. I am a voter. I live in Queens, but I'm also a co-lead organizer for Empire State Indivisible. I, along with Empire State Indivisible, supported and advocated for ranked choice voting before it was on the ballot. I personally support ranked choice voting because it, along with public financing, has the potential to help women and other candidates that sometimes have difficulty running and winning succeed. I believe it will also help increase engagement. And I also think it should cut down on negative campaigning. I could speak to many experiences I've had during this campaign cycle, but tonight I'm going to focus on the negative campaigning. I live in Council District 26 in Western Queens. It's the district where 15 Democratic candidates ran, many on similar platforms. I think because there was, probably due to COVID, it was very difficult for any of them to stand out. And because they had similar platforms, many of them, or some of them, turned to negative campaigning, including really putting down and spreading lies or gossip about other candidates, bullying those of us in the community who might say who we were going to vote for, who we supported, or refuse to say who we supported, just very nasty tactics. And this included, at community meetings, but also at the early voting sites on election day. And it has even kind of come into the count canvas that many of us are witnessing. My sort of statement and what I would like to see is some way where we can cut back on this and we can refine RCV and perhaps campaign finance so that the focus is on positive engagement and discussion and civil discourse on the issues and policy, and moving away from kind of these personal attacks and this negative campaigning. I think that would, if we can figure out how to do it, that will help RCV live up to the promise that it has. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for taking the time to be with us tonight, and thank you for your testimony. Next up on our list is Terence Page. Is Terence with us?
Terence is with us, yes.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Terence. I hear you okay. When you're ready, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Terence Page. I'm the president of the Greater New York Council of the Blind and a co-coordinator for Downstate Adapt with Kathleen Collins. I'd like to share my ranked choice voting experience. I vote at Silas Manor on 23rd. That is a building full of disabled and blind individuals. When I use the BMD to operate, there was an order issue. The mayor election section was perfect. It was choose 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And when I got to the second voting election section, I got to an issue. It went back from public advocate to another contest, and it went back and forth and back and forth. That caused a lot of confusion among the disabled and blind community within the building. And from what I heard, a lot of my constituents as president. I thought it was smooth, except for that error, and that there were people there who were blind and visually impaired, who need more contact with their community as much as possible. There were still blind and visually impaired persons who were receiving material in print. They need material in large print, which I know CFB did, some in Braille and some in audio. They did a great job but we need more outreach to those communities who can't read or write or even use language as a second language, who don't use English. And these communities need to be spoken to in a language that's very simple for them. Thank you for my time. I appreciate what the board is doing. I know they're trying to improve. I know they're trying to get better. And I once was a poll worker for the last 3 years. And I did the disabled training as a poll worker. And I understand the work is difficult and challenging. And I do appreciate the work that they do. Thank you very much. That's my time.
Thank you, Terence. Thank you for serving as a poll worker. Thank you for your advocacy and your perspective, and for spending time with us tonight to share your story and your testimony.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Michael Ring. Is Michael with us?
Yes, he is.
Oh, there I go. Hi, I'm Michael Ring. I am a white guy with short dark hair, eyeglasses, a t-shirt that says I ran a race somewhere, bookshelf behind me. And to tell people why we're self-describing, people who can't see need to know what everyone looks like too. Either people with visual impairments or just on the phone, make it fair. I would like to speak about my experience both as a poll worker and a voter with a disability. I'm also a member of Disabled in Action and a co-coordinator at Downstate Adapt. My job was to set up the ballot marking device and make sure it was working. And when I do that and I vote at my own polling place, I make sure I vote first thing in the morning to make sure it works. But if I wasn't a voter where I worked, no one would know if the ballot marking device worked. Because it's not part of our training to test it at 5:30 in the morning. We just open it up and assume it works. And many voters have a problem when they show up because the first voter to use it is the guinea pig. And it's a very frustrating experience for a lot of voters. And the Board of Election doesn't have a suggestion box or anything. They're kind of a hard group to talk to. So I thought I'd bring it up here and say, maybe we can all test the ballot marking device before the voters show up after it gets off a truck every day. That's really all I had to say. And thanks for your time here.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for serving as a poll worker. Thanks for your advocacy over this year and for spending time with us tonight to share your testimony.
Thanks.
Next up on our list, we have Diana Finch. Is Diana with us?
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Finch. I'm a white 60-something woman with short curly gray hair wearing a dark blue Hawaiian print shirt, and I'm in my home office near a sunny window. My testimony is about poll site changes. I'm a Bronx poll worker, usually assigned to PS 96 on Olinville and Waring Avenues in the Pelham Parkway neighborhood. For the primary, 2 EDs, usually at this site, were moved several blocks away to the Ghana United Methodist Church at 615 Reese Place, and the other 3 or 4 EDs remained at PS 96. I first learned of the change when I received my poll working assignment about 3 weeks before the election. Word of the change began to get out, but no explanation as to why. Many older, longtime voters decided they were not even going to vote this election, as they did not want to go to a new poll site that was not right across the street or up the block, when notification of the change was sent so late and without any explanation as to why. But the worst was yet to come. When we arrived at the church at 5 a.m., we discovered that the poll site was a room on the 3rd floor, and the sole elevator in the building was out of order. There are many older voters in these 2 EDs, which include a large 5-story senior living residence, who take pride in voting in person on election day. It took until after 11 a.m. for church management to get a repairman in to fix the elevator, which worked haltingly for a few hours, then went out of service again, by which time the repairman was too far away and busy with other commitments to return. We ended up having to move a scanner, the 2 ED tables and poll books down 3 flights of stairs into a small crowded lobby with the door open to the rain. The e-poll books were too far away from the cradle point to receive the signal and sync. Somehow we made it through the long day without having to turn away voters. My questions are about poll site changes. Are there rules about when and how these changes can be made, and how much notice has to be given to the affected voters? Must the reasons for the changes be given? Why isn't the public, the registered voters affected, part of the decision-making process? And can we rule out 3rd floor sites in buildings with a single elevator? I also wanted to just comment on what Terence Page said about the BMD confusion on the ballot, because we noticed this as well. When you got to the public advocate race and you started making your choices, after you made a couple of choices, it would switch you over to the comptroller race and then switch you back into the public advocate race for further choices. And the first time this happened, I thought I was making the mistake, and it was very confusing, and there wasn't any way we could see to correct it. And about the BMDs, my understanding is that they are at the end of their useful life, and they all tend to jam as they print out the ballots now. So you can use them a few times in the early morning, but then they often are disabled for the rest of the day. So thank you.
thank you so much, Diana, for taking the time to share your story tonight. Thank you for your service. And again, thanks for being here.
And is there a way to get follow-up answers to the questions about poll site changes?
For sure. We will, I think as noted earlier, we are compiling all of the comments and testimony tonight. We will be transmitting it over to the Board of Elections, to lawmakers at the state and city level, and making sure that, comments that everybody provides tonight are visible to the folks who can do something about it. We're also, with some of those specific questions, going to be passing those along directly to BOE. So again, definitely be in touch if you'd like to provide more information to help make sure that we get those answers.
Yeah, maybe you put in the chat the exact poll site location again. I mean, you said it, but so that we have it in in writing, so that it's easier to can transmit that information to the Board of Elections.
The next name on the list, and this is the last name we have signed up to testify, Lulu Friesdat. Again, if there are other folks here in the public meeting who'd like to speak, please let us know in the chat. Raise your hand. We want to offer an opportunity to everyone who's willing to share their testimony tonight. But with that, I see Lulu here on my screen. Lulu, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing us to share our thoughts. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm a very pale woman with very long brown hair, green eyes, wearing a headset, like earbuds. I have a tattoo of a dancing Krishna on my shoulder and a flowered summer blouse. A brick wall is behind me in my home here in Brooklyn. My name is Lulu Friesdat. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Elections. It's a nonpartisan nonprofit dedicated to meaningful election reform. I want to congratulate the Campaign Finance Board on all your work on the ranked choice voting rollout. I personally like that it inspired me to do more research on the candidates, so I enjoyed it. But because of the time limit, I'm just going to be blunt and focus primarily on my concerns. The most important change for New York City elections is to eliminate what public advocate Jumaane Williams today called the patronage mill that exists at the Board of Elections, and replace it with an administration that is nonpartisan and whose staffing is based on administrative competence and technical skills, not connections. During the New York City June primary, Smart Elections conducted a transparency pilot project in Brooklyn to do basic reconciliation in the polling places of the number of voters who checked in with the number of scanned ballots that were cast. Many locations were able to pass this test. However, in one location, the numbers we saw indicated almost 700 more ballots cast than voters who checked in. This was alarming and unusual. We sent the information to the New York City and the New York State Board of Elections, but neither of them had an explanation that made sense with the data that we found. For example, the New York City Board of Elections tried to say that this was because the scanner's protective counter was counting 2 pages for each one voter, but that didn't make sense with the numbers that we found, because the number of extra ballots was not twice the number of voters who voted. It was about over 200 ballots more than that. So the explanation didn't make sense, and it didn't even seem that they had taken time to think about the data that we sent them. It really was a very cursory look at the problem. We also encountered scanners that did not seem to be counting accurately. In one location, it appeared possible that the scanners had gone backwards hundreds of pages from the previous time that we visited and took the data. Some electronic poll books seemed to be out of sync. Poll workers were often hostile and refused to give us access to the data. And the New York City Board of Elections shut down our project after a few days. They refused to give me access as a poll watcher, despite that I had a valid candidate certificate. They blocked other members of our team from getting data, and they blocked me personally from observing the audit. Again, even though I had a valid candidate certificate, and that simultaneously disenfranchised that candidate and the public. The New York City Board of Elections flunked our transparency test, as well as the test of basic reconciliation of the data. You can read our preliminary report at smartelections.us, select NYC primary, and then click down on transparency report. I will also email it to the Campaign Finance Board along with written comments. I do want to make a brief word about the Fast Pass. I heard some enthusiastic comments for that. I would be wary of pushing for excessive use of that. It actually uses barcodes to check in each voter. Barcodes are convenient, but they also can be an attack vector and have security issues. A program, for example, could be run on barcodes that could affect the way that those voters' votes are counted. Information can be programmed into barcodes. They're programmable. So they actually make me very apprehensive. I never use that Fast Pass for that reason. I did hear people talking about how the BMDs are starting to go. And this is really concerning. And one of the reasons, besides the fact that it's very important for our voters with disabilities and others who need those ballot marking devices to have functioning machines, is that the replacement that the New York City Board of Elections is looking at is a voting machine that security experts say has serious design flaws. And in fact, they say poses extraordinary risks to the voters of New York. That's a voting machine called the Express Vote XL. And our organization has worked hard to prevent it from being certified, but we have not succeeded in completely preventing it yet. It is still pending certification. It was rejected once, but they are coming back. We were unable to get a law barring these type of voting machines through the Assembly, although we did get it past the Senate. So I encourage the Campaign Finance Board to do everything they can to get the hybrid ban bill passed in the next legislative session and to prevent the Express Vote XL, that is the hybrid voting machine that has these flaws, from being certified. It's a touchscreen machine that counts votes with barcodes and has severe risks. And we need to be aware that that is the choice that the New York City is looking into to replace the ballot marking devices that we have now. There are much better options coming. Three other vendors are applying for certification, and they have ballot marking devices that experts say are more secure and that voters with disabilities have had a better experience with. So I encourage the Campaign Finance Board to do everything that's powered to make sure that New Yorkers do not wind up voting on a machine that is such a hazard. I especially applaud Amy's statement that you need to focus on higher standards for data transparency, hiring practices, and a full review of the protocols at the New York City Board of Elections. This is critical for any improvements that we're going to make here in New York. And I hope that you follow up that statement with immediate action. Thank you again for all of your work.
Thank you, Lulu, for taking the time to be with us here tonight, and thank you for your testimony. So I see one or two hands raised. Thanks, folks, for being patient. Hilda Thomas, I see her hand raised. Do you have something to say, share with the committee?
Looks like Hilda jumped, unless I'm missing. Oh no, she has permission to speak, Hilda, if you'd like to speak.
I see her here in the panelists. All right. Well, if she doesn't wish to share, I am going to take this. We've come to the end of our list of speakers. If there are other folks who would like to share, please raise a hand. But while we take a moment for that, I want to ask if there are members of the committee who would like to share any reflections before we close the meeting. I see Danielle Gerard has joined us partway through. Danielle, if you have something to say, please please take a minute to say hello.
Yes, thank you for your indulgence in my being late. I had a 5:30 meeting that went longer than I thought. But I just want to say, as I always do, I just want to thank the VAAC and the staff for doing these presentations, for making them so organized, and all of the work that Allie and Amanda and everybody did in just constantly presenting to groups across the city about ranked choice voting. Oh, I forgot to describe myself. I'm at a standing desk, so you can only see me from the neck up. I'm very hot and tired, white woman, old, really tired and hot. I was out on Rikers Island all day for my job, and it was really hot. Did I say that 3 times? In any event, I have short blonde hair and glasses. Actually, really long blonde hair for me, short for other people. But I just want to acknowledge the staff and all the work they do. And Allie and Amanda, and I'm sure other people, went all around the city explaining ranked choice voting and made it much easier for people to participate. I agree, it's a great system. I'm sorry for the troubles that the testimony showed today, and appreciate Allie's text about the tweet from the BOE and the mistake that happened. And you're all doing a great job, and it's not easy, and thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for being here. And I'll, you know, while I'm here, I want to echo your appreciation for the staff. Ali Swatek, who's our Director of Policy and Research, Amanda Malillo, who's our Deputy Director of Public Affairs, has been helping out here during the meeting in the chat. Again, Jordan, who's been helping out kind of wrangle the Zoom. We really couldn't pull these meetings off with many hands associated with it. And really just everyone who's with us from the Public Affairs Division at CFB and across the agency for all the work that went into this election. Amy, I see your hand raised, so calling you.
I just wanted to thank Danielle for those kind words. I mean, the staff, certainly, I mean, the amount of effort and, you know, the time, you know, working remotely, but still, you know, every single day practically going out, you know, and talking to people about ranked choice voting. And I think that the proof is that, you know, the early results are people found it easy to use. And so you know, again, every new system, I think someone commented, has its glitches. It takes a little bit of time for people to get used to it, but I really, you know, I mean, again, I don't think it can be said enough how much, you know, this very small staff of people, about 4 or 5 people, how many events they went to and attended, you know, every single day to make sure that the public learned about ranked choice voting. So, you know, again, you know, the city of New York is in their debt.
Thank you, Amy. I couldn't say any of that better. So again, much appreciation to everyone, to the members of the committee, to, you know, to all the staff who've been putting in all the work. You know, and it is not, you know, it certainly, you know, not a convenience for everybody to gather here every other month and spend time to discuss these issues. But you know, I really do appreciate the time that folks put in to create and be part of this forum, to lift up some of these issues, to make sure that we are continually improving the voter experience here in New York City. Do any other members of the committee want to chime in before I ask Rick to close us out? Rick, can I, do we see a, Rick, do you want to close out the meeting for us?
I'll be happy to. My apologies for not starting the video, but I hadn't anticipated coming back on, and I'm a little informal at the moment. But I did want to thank. I did want to thank everyone for their participation, and assure everyone on this call and the public generally how carefully we will review all of these comments and other comments that I'm sure we will receive as we formulate our report after the election, as we are required by statute to do, our report on how things went and our recommendations for changes in the law and as we go forward. Again, thank you to all of you, and my special thanks to the CFB staff for all of their hard work, particularly on educating people as to ranked choice voting, and the hard work of our many partners and friends, both in the mayor's office and throughout the communities of New York City. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. And with that, I will wish everyone a pleasant evening and try to stay cool.
Happy 4th of July.